Greetings, young scholars. Welcome back to the exciting video lecture series for social media marketing with Dr. Williams. Today we will discuss Chapter 4, Social Media Marketing Strategy and Planning. Doesn't that sound exciting? Oh, yes, it does. So away we go. Where does it fit? Everybody's familiar with a business plan. Maybe you've drawn one up or been involved in one as a class project or something. Within a business plan, you would have a marketing plan. And within the marketing plan, you would have an integrated marketing communications plan. It used to be called, for short, MARCOM, or marketing communications, but that was too simple. So the marketing discipline has replaced that with an integrated marketing communications plan, which is a self-explanatory name, all of your marketing communications working together, hopefully seamlessly. That's the goal anyway. But within that IMC plan, you would have a social media marketing plan. All right, so that's where what we're going to discuss fits in a business plan or a marketing plan. So, the goal is you want to have as the slide says, a roadmap, because you need to have some way to allocate resources, which is money, of course, but also time and people, so that if you develop your social media marketing plan, you say, this is what we're going to need to pull this off. So I'm going to refer to this as the nibble then bite chart. All right, this is generally the way it works or begins and then moves on. In the trial phase, that's the first one, you generally are testing out platforms, which work for you, which don't work for you, what kind of business you're in, which platforms work best for you. All platforms reach different demographics and types of people. So this is generally where you're just kind of learning to use them and what's the potential, kind of, which should we use to help you move into a transition phase, not a fan. It's still kind of a little more random than it will be ultimately, but you should start in a transition phase of developing some systemic steps and be narrowing down what it is you want to do and where you want to do it and where we might get the most bang for the buck. And then you should end into the strategic phase, which we remember strategy as opposed to tactics. Strategy are longer term than tactics are. So in this phase, you would have a formal process of what you're going to use, how you're going to use it, what sorts of things you're going to do with it, and come up with a plan of how you're going to plan it out, the frequency of posts, the measurement, and all that stuff, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. There's a kind of a classic case in social media marketing involving His Majesty's master's voice, not Her Majesty. I was thinking of a James Bond movie, but His Master's voice. It was a HMV stores back in I guess it was the 80s and 90s, were big music stores. They had anything you wanted back in the days of the mega music stores. The classic story is that they, in using their social media, they just let a person who was working there run it, and I believe it was a her, but not sure about that. But anyway, an employee was running social media, and that was working out great until that person became disgruntled and left. So guess what? They had all of the credentials for the social media platforms. So now they were posting and attacking the company. So it's a classic example of, and we're going to talk about different structures at the end of this presentation, but it's a classic example of how you should have some rules about how you operate, who has access to the credentials to make sure that that can't happen, that the organization controls their social media platforms, even when they may allow all sorts of people to post to them. So, you know, if you have a very creative person and they're hired or they're interning and they're doing a real good job, you want to make sure that when they leave, they don't take the ability for you to try to take your platforms back over because they're damaging your company because they're the ones that set them all up. So it's just kind of a cautionary tale and a good example of what not to do. But anyway, so what are the steps? Conduct a situation analysis. And everybody should be familiar with the SWOT analysis by now. In life, that's a great way to start anything. Let's look at what's going on internally and externally. Even if you're just, you know, thinking about going on a date with somebody, you should do a situation analysis on it. What do you want to do? Right? I mean, what are our objectives? Just run around willy-nilly? That's not a good program. Who's our target audience? You know, well, we want to be able to be on platforms where they are, not on platforms where they're not. And then select the social zones and what vehicles you're going to use. What's your message strategy? How are we going to activate it? Get people, make sure they notice it and get involved in it. And then execute, and most importantly, measure, which we're going to come back to. So tells a story, your plan, identifies the characters, place, and time, clarifies the desired outcome. What are we looking to do? You know, are we looking to get likes? Are we looking to get information from people? You know, cell phone numbers and email addresses. And bolded at the end, one of the most important things is specify measures of success. Because if you're going to tell your boss, we need whatever, I need 3 people and $50,000 to execute the social media marketing plan we have, and then at the end of the year, he says, okay, did it work? You want to be able to say yes or no, or this is how it worked. So as an example, for the Wright School of Business social media, this is a report that we generated for January 2020, where we would post it, run the school, also provide it to the dean. This is what had happened in the month of January, and this is what we decided to measure. For Facebook, post engagements, reach, and page views. And for Instagram, interactions, reach, and impressions. You notice how we define these on there so that the people who we were giving the report to would know what that meant. Now, if you're a marketing student, you probably should know what those mean, but remember, everybody doesn't know what you know. So you want to explain it briefly. And then for LinkedIn, you see we provided those metrics for LinkedIn. So we decided that these were important to know and to keep track of month to month and year over year as it went on. It was a brand new program at the time. And see if what we're doing was working. Were we getting better at it? Were we doing worse? What sorts of things were maybe becoming a little more viral, had more reach? So if it's not measured, it's not important. Or the old saying is, if it's not measured, what matters is measured. All right, so you want to come up with some measurements that make sense for whatever it is you're doing and that you can report, right? You can't make sure the measurements that you think we should We want to improve this. Well, can we measure that? Can we report that? Not everything that you want to do, that you want to report, is able to be quantified. So let's go back. Step one, SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So strengths and weaknesses are internal to your operation. We'll stick with the Wright School of Business if we want to do this one. Strengths and weaknesses of our firm. Opportunities and threats are external, right? What opportunities do we have? What threats are coming at us in business? So we start there, number one, and then you see the review of the next two bullets. And we want to review what we want to do, what our strategies are for doing, and again, how are we going to measure it? Because if you can't measure it and provide me some numbers, then I'm not going to be, if I'm not involved in it day to day, I'm not going to be too excited about, I won't know what it means, right? So situation analysis. Are there linkages between what you want to do and social media? Maybe not. Usually at some level, yes, but can you show that? What do you do that you can tie to social media that will be interesting? You know, maybe your business is not aligned toward that. Does the firm have any resources they can direct to social where you can boost posts, make ads, put a few dollars behind it, or not? You can still run a program, but it just, you need to know that going in. Is the organization on board? That's tough. Depends on, depends on what the organization is. If, let's say for a college campus where most of the professors are digital immigrants and don't use social media at all, then it's not maybe as helpful as it will be in an ad agency with a bunch of digital natives, and you might get a lot more action and creativity and contributions. Who are your customers? Do they use social media? If your customers are aged 65 to 80, maybe a social media marketing plan's not your best program, right? Because maybe they're not there. What do the competitors do? Here's a good plan. See what they do that works and copy that. That's legitimate. That's a legitimate strategy that a lot of people overlook. But see what they're doing, and even if it seems kind of stupid, if they keep doing it, maybe it works. Maybe you shouldn't call it stupid so quick. And then you want to look at trends that are going on both within your organization and outside. See if they fit. At least you get a picture of what's happening. Objectives should always be specific. They don't have to be super specific, but pretty specific. Measurable. Can you measure them? Right? And does the measurement make sense? A lot of things that you might want to know are simply not measurable. There's no way to get the data without, or maybe no way to get it quickly and cheaply. Attainable. So goals should be, or objectives should be aspirational, but not so hard that at the initial outset, when everybody sees them, they go, well, there's no way we can get there. So then people just don't try. It's like saying, well, if you have $1 million worth of sales next quarter, then you get a week off. Okay, well, I'll never have $1 million worth of sales, so I'm not even going to try. See, that's useless. Relevant, in other words, it makes sense for your business, right? So if you are looking for, let's say you're a brand new business and you're just looking to bring, let people know that your business is out there, maybe that's a relevant objective. If you've been around for a long time, maybe your objective should be that we want to increase sales through our online portal, let's say. And then time bound. You want to have objectives, say, by this date, we want to have X amount of interactions with our posts or whatever. You don't want to make it open-ended because then never, what does that mean? You never get there. You never assess them. Also, deadlines tend to focus people's attention. So, so this acronym, SMART, you've run across it in other courses probably. If not, you will. And if you don't, you will have here. But it's a good way to think about your objectives: specific, measurable, attainable, but not too easy to attain, relevant or realistic. They mean something. It's something we should be working on, and time bound deadlines. So here's some sample objectives. Let's say we want to start a social media marketing campaign. Maybe we want to increase our market share. Maybe we just want to increase the number of comments on our blog. So we're going to drive to it. Increase sales. That's a good one, provided we can tie that to our campaign. Reduce costs, increase database size, in other words, collect information from people. Achieve customer relationship management goals. If you download this, the PowerPoint is also available on the learning management system. You can click on that link for Dollar Shave Club. They had some hilarious, when they first started, hilarious commercials. And it was obvious. So what they were trying to do was get people to share those so that people knew they existed. They talked a bit about the product, but not really too much. Mostly it was just hilarity. And you can click on that link and see one of my favorite ones, one of my favorite ads that they put up. Obviously, their objectives by those early ones were to increase the knowledge of the general populace that they existed, or improve on that. This is a chart from the book that somehow collaborators all fuzzed up. But you can look at it in the book, but you can see, I can tell you this, the top one on this chart is to increase exposure. That's a top objective that people use. The top three are increase exposure, increase traffic, and develop loyal fans. So one of the common objectives you'll see in social media marketing plans are we want to increase exposure, which ties back to the Dollar Shave Club early ads. All right, so then we want to get target audience insight. Who should we select to target? What's our target market? We divide up markets into groups because there's a shortage of time and money in this life, and we want to do it as effectively and efficiently as we can. So which segments should we select to target? Where do they participate? If it's middle-aged women, they're going to be more involved on Pinterest and Instagram than they are on LinkedIn or Gab, let's say. How do they use it? Do they use social media to shop, or do they use social media just to mess around, or just look around or creep on people? What's important, and we're going to talk about this as the class moves on. So if we're looking to reach 22-year-old male gamers, Pinterest is probably not the platform we're going to go with, right? Because we're not going to be hitting them. But conversely, if we're looking to reach groups of that live in Catholic nunneries, maybe we don't use social media at all. And if we do, we don't use Bumble, right? So step 4, select our zones. So considering what we want to do, how much money and people and time we have to do it, our overall strategy, which zones are we interested in? Relationship, publishing, entertainment, commerce. I've already mentioned Dollar Shave Club. That link that says Mike, if you look at the modified PowerPoints on the learning management system, you can click on that link, and that's for Mike's Golf. If you're not familiar with Mike's Golf, you should be, because this is a guy that spent nothing making short, ridiculous videos on a cell phone, how he started, and managed to look at the hits on his little self-made ads, and you can see in the thousands, and it got him on television. He was on Tosh 2.0 at one point and all around, and I would categorize it at Mike as social entertainment. All right, but people knew where he was, and I've had lots of students go take pictures with Mike because it's up in the Chattanooga area, and send them to me once I turn them on to Mike's Golf shop. It's a great example that you don't need to spend a lot of money to get a lot of virality out of a post and make yourself known. So you want to see where it is, what you're interested in doing. If you're going to have if you want to sell something direct, maybe you concentrate in the social commerce arena. If you're looking to increase your exposure, maybe you concentrate in entertainment, something that's fun to watch that people will share. All right, step 5, an experience strategy. Okay, we're going to talk about this second bullet, campaign work to leverage the brand's positioning strategy. What is positioning? We should know that by now, but positioning is what is in the consumer's mind with respect to your good or service. How do they view it? And those of you that have me before know I will often use a classic of Bayer aspirin that for years was known in the consumer's minds as a something to remedy pain, right? People use aspirin for toothaches and things like that. Now they've changed the positioning of Bayer, that one of their primary message they share with consumers is that heart attack prevention, or helping people who have heart attacks keep from dying of them at that moment. So whatever your brand's positioning strategy, you want to work around that. Okay, well, whatever the good or service is. If it's education, then you want to work around that. If it's air travel, you work around that. Who's the target audience? What do you want them to do? Do you want them to interact with it? You want them to share it? You want them to buy directly from it, from the message? Do you want to have user created content around your brand like Doritos does and make your own commercials and then amplify them? Again, it's important to know who your audience is. And are there any influencers that we could get to? And who are they, and why would they want to share your message? What's in it for them? Do they have to be paid, or can they be motivated just because you're doing a social good, your company is, and people just want to share it, right? If you buy shoes from us, we give away a pair of shoes, and perhaps influencers just are drawn to that because of their good nature and spirit. So you want to develop that experience strategy in stage 5. You may have seen this. This is a PSA for Melbourne, Australia, rail safety. It doesn't even mention it until the end. But again, if you on the learning management system, you can see, you can click on that link on the modified PowerPoint, and you can watch the video, which is funny, a little bit, it might be a little bit gross, but mostly it's funny, and you can see it's the message and who's putting forth the message not even really available to you until the end. So their strategy was to have something that people would watch and then share so that they could get their important message out without it being right up front, because it may not have, a PSA from the Melbourne Metro in itself right up front may not have gotten shared much, but Dumb Ways to Die did get shared a lot. So then we have an activation plan. what is that? That gets people to, you have a campaign, and then you activate it by, you can have an event, let's say, uh, that supports it, gets people going. You can have like, Dr. Pepper could have an event where people would be involved with it, and that would kind of activate their plan. So how do you make it happen? Who's responsible? It's best to use a title for who's responsible versus a name, because people will get promoted, leave, do whatever. You want to know whoever is in that title, that's their responsibility. How do you time it around your campaign? Do you need money for it? Time, people, how many? And make sure it's consistent with what you're trying to do, right? That's kind of commonsensical, but you want to make sure it is consistent with what your objectives are that you outlined earlier, whatever they are. So remember, if it's important, what matters is measured. So if you remember, going back to the slide of, which I will take you to right now, the dashboard that we created for the social media efforts of the Right School of Business, you can see we decided this is what, these are the metrics that we're going to keep track of month to month. And we also created charts and graphs and things like that. How do you collect it? Is it collectible? You want to make sure it's collectible before you say this is one thing that we're going to keep track of. Standards of conduct, we're going to talk about in a minute. Disclosure requirements in a minute. And standards for posting corporate information. What's allowed, what's not allowed. Pictures and text. So you want to make sure that everybody signs off on that. I don't know why this is fuzzed up, but companies have social media policies. These are two, one Microsoft and Sun Microsystems. You can see the Sun Microsystems. When you're in a virtual world as a Sun representative, your avatar should dress and speak professionally. Okay, that's a rule they have. And Microsoft, you can see that's their rule. Whenever possible, use a services profile or contact information to prove that you're a Microsoft employee. So you should have a policy. How in depth it should go, that's up to each individual company. But the word of mouth association provides templates to use. That you can see, this is one where you would, maybe you were paid for it, maybe you weren't, and they give you hashtags to use. If it's sponsored or paid, you really should disclose that. A lot of times you'll see this person is a paid spokesperson, although they really did use the product or whatever. So there are places to provide those kinds of templates so you can be honest, online or social media about what you're doing. So how should you set it up? If you're UPS or a local restaurant, what sort of structures do people use for their social media marketing management? You could have a centralized structure where one person has to approve everything. Of course, if you think of the pros and cons of each of these that I'm getting ready to show you, it's also in the book, might that decrease creativity if the person in charge has no creativity and not a funny bone in their body? Sure. But it would put one person as responsible if something went terribly awry and something gets posted that shouldn't get. If it's all run through a centralized structure, then one person, would be to blame because they approved it. An organic structure, everybody can post, right? So what's the pro of that? Well, you get all kinds of cool stuff probably. Could you also get a problem? Sure you could, because things that I might think are funny, maybe the big bosses don't think are funny. They think it's damaging or whatever. So you could get all sorts of great information if people are all able to post. Then you have an organic structure. Coordinated structure is the most popular, where you have a bunch of different people in different departments, different places with the ability to post, right? And it's coordinated through a central person, but maybe they don't Bigfoot everything. They still allow them to use their individual, creativity to post. Then we have the Dandelion structure, where we might have each department has people that are submitting posts, and they submit it to some other authority. And of course, by the time it gets out, it might not even be useful anymore because it worked too slow. So that's why a coordinated structure is currently the most popular. You need some control over your firm's social media, where you can hold someone to account and make sure that something gross doesn't get posted, or something potentially damaging gets posted. But there are other ways, and everybody doesn't follow that. So it depends on the perspective, depending on how dangerous you think it could be to let people run loose, or how trusted they are. So with that said, that ends chapter 4, social media marketing strategy and planning. And I will see you cats on the internet.